Hello everyone, welcome to my Resident Evil 7 Madhouse difficulty, no damage walkthrough, and this is going to be the old house area that we're going to be heading towards. So the old house doesn't have that many molded. It does introduce a new type of molded called the bladed molded, and the blade molded, he has the same moveset as the normal molded, but he has one dangerous move that's very difficult to avoid, where if you're too close to him, he will do this vertical slash that you have to run away from. Otherwise, he'll hit you every time. There's no way to dodge it, you just have to run away from it. And it has a lot of range. So for the most part, don't stay too close to him. And then there's also another enemy type that the old house introduces, because of course we're heading into Marguerite's territory, and Marguerite controls insects. So we're going to be dealing with large insects that are more so of a pest than an actual enemy. And then we're going to be dealing with smaller insects that swarm these nests that you can destroy in one hit with a grenade launcher. Because if you don't destroy the nests and you get close to them, the swarm will just swarm you, and they will do so much damage on Madhouse difficulty, and you'll be dead really fast. But the fact that the grenade launcher is available so early in Madhouse difficulty allows this section to flow really well. And like I mentioned before in the previous video, each of the weapons on this game has its own intended purpose for each section, and this is the intended purpose of the grenade launcher. It's to help you destroy the nests inside of the old house. Because without the grenade launcher, you'd have to resort to the burner, and with the burner, you'd easily be subjected to damage while you're destroying the nest. And that's pretty much the only thing I ever used the grenade launcher on. Maybe if I experimented more with the grenade launcher in this game, I could probably use it against certain bosses. I do use it against Marguerite when she traps you inside the hole, and it does a lot of damage to her. So you can knock off Marguerite rather quickly if you have the grenade launcher plus enhanced handgun ammo. It's too bad I don't get the same feeling Resident Evil 2 Remake. With Resident Evil 2 Remake, I don't bother trying to use any of the other weapons. I only ever use the knife in Resident Evil 2 Remake because the game's designed around knife only, and because of the fact that it's designed around knife only, the game just flows properly when you're doing a knife only, and you're not having to manage your inventory as much. And that's unfortunately what I feel about all the weapons in Resident Evil 2 Remake, aside from the knife. They feel like a waste of space. And you would think they wouldn't, because the game offers up a lot of different weapons. I mean, it has the pistol, it has the shotgun, it has the grenade launcher, it has a flamethrower, it has a spark shot. You know, all these different weapons, but like, the enemy types just don't demand much effort, really, compared to this game. In Resident Evil 7, I feel like the enemy types demand the full assortment of your weaponry in order to properly balance the game out, but due to the Resident Evil 2 Remake's simplistic and average nature, the enemy types just aren't very demanding at all. And once you've done a knife-only run of Resident Evil 2 Remake, why would you ever want to go back to using all the weapons? And that's just the problem. That's just the overall problem when it comes to the weapon design. And even if the game was designed around accommodating all the weapons, I just don't think it would be as good as Resident Evil 7. Because for the most part, the weapons in Resident Evil 2 Remake just feel like a step backwards when compared to Resident Evil 7. But I'm not going to go into it. I'll go into it once I do my Resident Evil 7 versus Resident Evil 2 Remake video series, because I'll be comparing content, weapons, enemy design, boss design, etc. Just a lot of the things that benefit a game. So we picked up the stone statuette, and you don't have to do this cutscene where you talk with Mia. I just choose to do it because I just feel like it's wrong not to do it. That's all. So once Lucas abducts Mia, you're going to be able to take two different paths through the old house. But you want to always take the path straight ahead, because the nests and the enemy types are all set up perfectly to allow you to get through this old house area without any resistance. So here's Marguerite. She'll cause spiders to spawn on the door, and make sure you strafe away from the door so that you don't take damage immediately once you exit that little in-game moment. Run back here, destroy the nest on the ceiling, because Marguerite has a tendency of getting caught on that nest, and they can mess with her pathing. And then burn the insects off of the door. Now what you're going to have to do is go back into this room here, and if you get the molded spawning in, run outside of the old house in order to despawn him. Because I think when the molded spawns in, it actually causes Marguerite to go over to where he is, because she kind of hears him. And you don't want that. Because you'll notice, if you hear properly, it sounds like Marguerite is very close to the room I'm in. So that's why I'm being cautious. You can see the moths buzzing around. When you see moths buzzing around, it means Marguerite is nearby. Because she always has that to indicate where she is. And it's a really nice bit of feedback. It almost reminds me of the Evil Within when it comes to its traps, where you see red blobs floating about, indicating there's a trap nearby. Really, really cool that they decided to do that. So all I'm doing here is waiting. The stealth in the old house section works really, really well. She's no Mr. X. She actually works as intended. There's no moment where she just immediately turns around and knows you're there. Although I will say her peripheral vision is really, really good. She can see you from some ridiculous angles if she sees your head. For the most part, as long as you don't see the enemy's head, they won't know you're there. But you have to also make sure you're behind the wall. Obviously. And this is one of the shadow puzzles I've committed to memory because it's a mandatory one. What you gotta do is just move the left, not the left analog stick, the right analog stick to the top left, and you'll get the puzzle every time. And interesting fact about these centipedes here. Carcinogen and SDA pointed out that these are actually Japanese mukade. These are centipedes that only exist in Japan, and somehow they're in Louisiana. Very interesting that he was able to identify that. And now there's some more burner fuel, there's some more chem fluid always. And then we're going to be able to get the crank from here. And at the speed I'm going right now, this does not look like a slow game whatsoever. I don't know why people say this is the slowest Resident Evil game ever, when it's actually one of the fastest. In fact, at times I feel like this game is faster than Resident Evil 6, because Resident Evil 6 had a lot of sluggishness to a lot of its movement systems and to its melee attacks that was really, really annoying when it happened. But thankfully there's nothing like that in this game. And you'll notice, I placed my cursor on the crank, and then I exited the inventory, and then I got over here, and the cursor was immediately on the crank. That's so cool. That's unfortunately not a thing in Resident Evil 2 Remake, because what it does in Resident Evil 2 Remake is it pauses the game entirely, and then it only defaults to the very first square in your inventory system. It doesn't save where your cursor was previously when you were in the inventory. And that's something I just feel like is really dumb, because I feel like it makes the inventory system a little bit slower than Resident Evil 7's. And you're not having to waste time trying to place an important item in the first slot if you're wanting to go for a speed run. So wait for Marguerite to go near the door and then move, because of course she's going to be in the animation of opening the door since I closed it behind her. And it definitely delays her a little bit. So once again, my cursor was previously on the crank the last time I was in the inventory, and it defaulted to there. Really, really useful. Everything in this game feels so fast, despite its superficial looking slowness. So this boss fight coming up with Marguerite, you can get it done with just enhanced handgun ammo, but if you want it to be a little bit faster to avoid taking damage, make sure you take the grenade launcher with you, because the incendiary grenades do a lot of damage to Marguerite in this fight. And then it only takes about 5 enhanced handgun ammo to finish off Marguerite once you hit her with the grenade launcher. And this is a moment you would never see. Actually, you would see this in the older Resident Evil games, because I mean, this is technically a boss fight. Only in the older Resident Evil games, this would be possible to do knife only, because somehow Marguerite would just be down here. But this is not a knife only part. You have to shoot her. So yeah, just hit her with the grenade launcher, and you can actually shoot her hand while she's flinching. And it only takes, yeah, see? 5 shots from the enhanced handgun ammo to finish her off. I think from now on, I'm going to take the grenade launcher in, because I don't use the grenade launcher for anything else aside from destroying nests. So the fact that it at least has another important purpose can be really, really useful. And right here, you need to examine the necrotoxin kit in order to progress the story. And then you need to examine the phone here. And then you need to proceed down the end of this corridor and then head back in order to trigger Marguerite to be in her mutated state. And you have to follow her into the greenhouse, and then the boss fight will begin. So the Marguerite boss fight is one of my favorite bosses in the Resident Evil series, because she dies so fast, and then the way the game rewards you for saving your resources is that you can stunlock Marguerite with the burner, and also with the enhanced handgun ammo. You don't even need the shotgun, you don't even need the grenade launcher. The burner and the pistol are the only weapons you'll need for this fight. And there's a lot of verticality to the fight. There's a lot of jumping down from the second floor onto the first floor, trying to escape Marguerite. And, you know, she can climb on the walls, so you gotta shoot her off. Really, really fun. There's a lot of thought to this fight, and I really enjoy it. There are several things that Marguerite can do. She has a lot of different melee attacks, but as long as you keep your distance, you won't get the chance to use them. Well, I will say, she's very difficult doing it knife only. Not that this fight is designed for knife only, because there's one particular spot where she tries to plant a nest, and that's one of her main abilities. Whenever she takes enough stun damage, and she runs away to the exterior of the greenhouse, she will then appear somewhere else in the greenhouse and start planting nests. And you can melee her off of certain ones, but there's one particular spot that you can't melee her off of that you need to shoot her, and it's I'll point it out when I show it. And then not only that, but she has the ability to ambush you from the ceiling. So she'll set up on a high ground above you, and when you appear there, she will try to ambush you and jump on you. And believe me, you do not want to get grabbed by Marguerite. Her grabs do so much damage, because of course this is the hardest difficulty. In fact, she even does a really brutal grab on Ethan. That's honestly the most brutal animation in the Resident Evil series, and it makes me cringe every time I see it. But it only happens if she grabs you from a window. If she grabs you from a window, then she'll actually do the grab that makes me cringe. It's where she basically grabs both of Ethan's legs, and she pulls them apart, and he literally gets torn in half, and I cringe every time I think about it. And the first time I saw it, I was so in shock. This game is a very brutal Resident Evil game. This is really where Resident Evil started to get even more brutal with its kills. They definitely toned that down in Resident Evil 2 Remake. None of the kills in Resident Evil 2 Remake feel very brutal in the slightest. But yeah, that is another area where you can use the crow key and you can gain access to some shotgun shells and to some grenade rounds. But I'm going to just completely turn the grenade rounds into strong chem fluid so I can make enhanced handgun ammo. But I don't have any gunpowder right now. You can get gunpowder in the Marguerite boss fight. Really, really helpful. Like this fight gives you so many options to deal with Marguerite. It definitely shows that the weapons on this game matter. They matter so much in this game, in allowing the game to flow properly and to really see the Resident Evil mechanics in action. But now I'm ready for her, so I'm going to head inside the greenhouse. And there's some more ammo before dropping down. Once you get inside this greenhouse, you can't leave until you kill Marguerite. There's some more chem fluid there. There's also some gunpowder, but I have to discard one of the chem fluids, unfortunately, since I've run out of space. Not that it matters, because I will get a lot of chem fluid back. Even though the chem fluid, I only ever use it for burner fuel and healing items, and since I'm not using healing items in this no damage run, there's really no need for me to keep the chem fluid. I'm thinking of doing a burner-only run of Resident Evil 7 because I consider the burner to be one of the weaker weapons of the game. that's only useful against Marguerite, because that's its intended purpose. But anyway, at the beginning, strafe away once you trigger the grab, so that she doesn't grab you. And then you need to burn off the insects there so that they don't attack you when you get near that. Because we're going to use this spot here in front of the cabinet as a reference point to get close to any of the spots where Marguerite is trying to plant a nest. So she was in the ceiling all the time after that first grab. And when she jumps on the ceiling like that after she gets stunned, when she does it really fast, she'll always try to do the grab, so run away from her. And I'll just keep stun locking her. And when she's on the walls like that, just shoot her off. And she'll always fall down if you deal enough damage to her. And she's just stunned for such an eternity that you can just spray her to death with the flamethrower. And the hit stun, as I've already mentioned, that is Resident Evil hit stun right there. It's so beautiful in this design. And now all you gotta do is just hear her out, because when she runs away, as I've already mentioned, she tries to plant a nest, or she tries to hide in the ceiling to ambush you. And I knew she was gonna be there, because I didn't hear her making any noise until later on. So that's how I knew she was gonna be in that spot. And she's on the ceiling, so I'm gonna swap to the enhanced handgun ammo and shoot her off. And right there, she came very close to trying to grab me, but thankfully I shot her off in time. And cool thing, if you have a shotgun, you can actually shoot Marguerite out of the air when she tries to do the jump attack on you. And the reason why she didn't attack me just then is if you stun her twice, or if you knock her off of a wall, she will never ever try to attack you when she recovers. But there she is. She was trying to ambush me, but thankfully I heard her, because the sound effects for her are beautifully designed. And because I stunned her once and she was heading towards me, I knew she was going to attack me. Now that I've stunned her twice, she's going to run away. And now I'm just going to set up back at my spot. But thankfully she was right there. I got very good luck with where she spawned. There she goes, she jumped up immediately. She's going to try to do the jump attack on me, but thankfully I avoided it. And she's in this animation for such a long time. Again, a really, really balanced boss that can be so lethal if she catches you out. And when the music changes like this, it means we're on the next phase, where she's going to be on all fours trying to come after you instead of walking. But she doesn't really get much of an opportunity to do that because I'm just stun locking her to death. And she's going to climb the wall, so I'm just going to shoot her off. This is such a great fight. This is what happens when you apply Resident Evil design to a boss. This is what happens. This is how I think a boss fight would actually work in real life. And she's dead. Beautifully designed. That's really the only boss in the Resident Evil series that I can think of that gives you the ability to stun lock. And it's just so incredible in this design. You unfortunately don't get that in Resident Evil 2 Remake. Because the hit stun in Resident Evil 2 Remake is very, very inconsistent. I mean, the only time I can think of where the hit stun isn't so inconsistent is against G3 Birkin, because every time you destroy a weak spot, he always flinches from it. And that's really it. Everything else, the hit stun is very inconsistent with a lot of the other enemy types. Like, even with the lickers, it's very inconsistent, even though you can stun lock lickers with a knife. Like, zombies, just very, very inconsistent in hit stun when you're trying to use specific weapons against them. Oh yeah, IVs. Yeah, I completely forgot about the IVs. The IVs in Resident Evil 2 Remake, as long as you shoot their bulbs, which are just the orange sacks on their body, it's a guaranteed stun. So that's one other instance of a good hit stun in Resident Evil 2 Remake, but that's not apparent for all the enemies, unfortunately, in Resident Evil 2 Remake. For the most part, a lot of them just have very inconsistent hit stun properties compared to Resident Evil 7. And even when the moments where hit stun is inconsistent in Resident Evil 7 happens, the game gives you the ability to dodge, just in case those moments happen. Like, Resident Evil 7 offers you so much more opportunity when it comes to dealing with certain situations compared to Resident Evil 2 Remake, that it just feels a lot more balanced in Resident Evil 7. And I apologize for all the awkward transitions in this video. That's just PlayStation's fault. It's only apparent with this particular Resident Evil game. I don't get a lot of Actually, I did get a lot of moments where during my blind playthrough of Resident Evil 2 Remake, there were a lot of those weird transitions that PlayStation was trying to do. And it's just so hard to look back at. It just makes the game look very jarring. Or my video to look rather jarring. But I had forgotten to pick up the pump-action shotgun from the previous chapter, so I'm doing it now. Just as my personal recommendation, don't go for the pump-action shotgun. Go for the double-barrel shotgun because it's a lot stronger. I just choose to use the pump-action shotgun because I just want to have a bigger challenge, because the pump-action shotgun doesn't do a lot of damage compared to the double-barrel shotgun, and its fire rate is very low since you have to pump the shotgun every time you fire. So I just wanted to have a little bit more of a challenge. To be honest though, this whole entire walkthrough I've been using very reckless strategies, just to show that this game is not very heavy on RNG like so many other people think. So once we have the lantern, we can gain access to the playroom area of the old house. And we can gain access to the D-series arm, which we need to craft the serum. Ah, that transition, so disappointing that made it. And there's a lockpick in the ceiling here. And then Evie's going to turn off your light, and she's going to tell you to stay away. But since we're the main protagonist, and Ethan Winters has balls, he just steps into the darkness. There's a secret passage behind here. And there's the D-series arm. Yeah. And you're gonna see a weird bug in this section. This is the second time this has happened to me. The first time it happened to me was yesterday, when I was playing through the game, when I was not doing the walkthrough. But this happened. I don't know why. I've been getting this issue where for some reason this molded doesn't spawn in immediately. He spawns in after a while after you open the door, which is not how the game's supposed to work. He's supposed to spawn in the moment you open the door. And also, when he's doing that roaring animation, it means he's invulnerable. Only for that particular molded. Every other molded, when they do that roaring animation, they're not invulnerable. There's just, for some reason, when that molded roars like he does, he's just invulnerable. And right there is another reason why I love this game. This game disables hitboxes through walls. This is the only Resident Evil game I can think of where hitboxes are disabled through walls. It might be in Resident Evil 2 Remake, but I haven't really seen it for sure. But considering that they missed simple things like being able to back up into doors and they still open, because that's not a thing in Resident Evil 2 Remake, it's only a thing in Resident Evil 7. I can imagine that they missed that whole system of enemies hitting you through walls. But that's just something I'll have to test out in the future. But that is the end of the old house section. We're going to be encountering Lucas in the next video. Thank you all for watching, and you take care now.